The despondency is where emotional investors sell, professional investors buy. Professional
And they're
investors
aware of this.
sell at the euphoric, right? And then buy at the despondent. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. So again, going to the idea of uncertainty, right? Taking risks. Some people think that you shouldn't take risks. You should always take risks.
Yeah, we want you to. It's
Risk,
a basic
again,
need.
That's the uncertainty we're talking about. Something that is new and novel and exciting, right? And there's a lot of things to do, right? Especially the investment world, putting your money into something.
Welcome to Wealth Untethered, your guide to the principles and mindset of a genuinely wealthy life. This podcast explores universal laws, principles, and strategies that lead to wealth and fulfillment. We delve into topics like investment, cash flow, business, estate and legacy planning, longevity, health, science, and more. All in an attempt to examine and challenge your mindset about what's possible for you. To learn more about Wealth Untethered, visit our website, wealthuntethered.com. Remember, our insights are not direct financial advice, so consult with your financial team before making any decisions based on the topics discussed in this show.
David Shallcross, he had these needs within him, and he wasn't like deliberate about this human life value balance sheet in his life. He had this successful business. There in the beginning of his business, there was a lot of uncertainty. They had a lot of credit lines. It was just him and his business partner, and then they hired a few people, and they moved into a bigger office, and more revenue started coming in. They were creating on a daily basis. Like, this guy was sleeping, and drinking this business in the early years. And as a result of everything that he poured into the business, that uncertainty was driving him. It was fueling him. It was fulfilling him. He didn't realize it or recognize how much of a need that uncertainty was until he started taking his foot off of the gas. He started relaxing more. They had all this income coming in. They had this big office. They had over a dozen employees. And he told himself this story that he wanted to enjoy more of this wealth. Over $10 million in the bank and in investments, and over $1 million a year in income coming in. And he's like, hey, I want to enjoy more of this, which again is a big blinking red light. And he didn't recognize that uncertainty was actually a need. So when we talk about these 4 basic needs that Tony Robbins so eloquently describes as certainty, uncertainty, significance, and love, he wasn't clear about that uncertainty piece. That uncertainty being risk and variety. So when that wasn't being fulfilled and met in his life, subconsciously, he was going to fulfill it.
Because he had the need.
He had that need, right? And so what he did is he took that flyer on that investment, and he put in a little bit of money, and it was risky. There was a lot of risk, but there's this high reward, and he got the high reward. And then so he put a little bit more money in there, and that was fulfilling that need of risk and variety and uncertainty. Unknowingly. That's exactly right. And I'll relate it to, I remember when our son, Caden, turned 21, and we were in Las Vegas for something. We just live a couple hours away from Las Vegas. We were in a big casino, and he had never gambled professionally at a slot machine or something like that. And he had a $20 bill. His money that he had himself, and he put it in the machine, pulled the lever, it spun the wheels, and it was gone. $20, just like that. He was all disappointed. He was upset. I'm like thinking to myself, that's the best damn thing that could have happened.
Oh, yeah.
Because had he won, that would have triggered him to want more of that and to have more of that in his life. So I'm glad that he lost. Well, David Shallcross lost. He pushed all his chips on the table, into this investment, and he ended up losing it, but he wasn't aware of that uncertainty and his subconscious level of having that fulfilled in his life.
So I think there's something interesting in human nature about being right, and a huge fear around being wrong. and looking at especially the investment world. I'd also say the business world. You could even go into religion and political, right? Is we gravitate toward something that we've explained and understood for ourselves, right? And now it's kind of a part of how we see things, okay? And when it's compromised, we either are open-minded, okay, or we strengthen our perspective, right? Just for the sheer fact of being right or fear of being wrong.
Pride, ego.
Right. And so I look at, the financial world is full of this. Right. And I think there are professional investors that have understood this for a really long time and they capitalize on it. There's a whole emotional investment curve that talks about those that are driven emotionally to make investments. Right. And, the curve starts out with optimism. It goes to excitement. It goes to thrill. It goes to euphoria. Like, oh my gosh, then things start to go sideways. And then it's denial, anxiety, fear, depression, panic, capitulation. And finally, it's like at the bottom, that's with like, okay, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done
despondency.
this.
Such a great
The reason
word.
why I say professional investors, that is their buy. The despondency is where emotional investors sell. Professional investors buy. Professional
and they're
investors
aware of this.
sell at the euphoric, right? And then buy at the despondent. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. So again, going to the idea of uncertainty, right? Taking risks. Some people think that you shouldn't take risks. You should always take risks.
Yeah, we want you to. It's
Risk,
a basic
again,
need.
That's the uncertainty we're talking about. Something that is new and novel and exciting, right? And there's a lot of things to do, right? Especially the investment world, putting your money into something. Look at gambling now. I mean, 10 years ago, gambling, sports betting, right, was like non-existent. Now it's like they sponsor
on
the
apps.
event.
It's right on your phone.
But they also sponsor the actual games that, it's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
But gambling is a part, like we're instinctually like driven to gamble, to take risks. Okay. But what we're talking about, right, is leverage that, especially with human life value in the things where you have control and influence.
Be clear about it.
Very clear. So that's again, going back to our first conversation with human life value, right? If you have assets that have produced the business, your human life value assets that have produced a business result that you're getting right now, you have to recognize that the environment in which you're operating is always changing. It is changing at a more rapid pace than ever before. So if you're not innovating as a business, you're gonna go out of business. Okay. So obviously there's gonna be that uncertainty there, but go more in on that. Find opportunities to innovate. Find opportunities to be of more value. A new product line, a new business line. There's always going to be opportunities there, but recognize that it is going to fulfill that need for uncertainty. Now, you don't want to necessarily in business go all in on something. You want to be wise in the way that you do it.
Sure.
But you want to find things to fulfill that need, to meet that need, okay, that are inside of you, not outside of you. And that's what David approached, right, is something that was outside of him that he had no influence over, no control over. And ultimately, I think in the book, it was, some SEC thing and some other thing that happened and, collapsed, the value of that investment.
Yeah.
So anyway, the idea is like, okay, leverage. Professional investors are already leveraging this. They have for a really long time. Okay, but start to recognize that your hubris, right, could essentially be an asset or it could be a liability.
Yeah.
Okay, but recognize it in the context of your business and find opportunities to take risks and figure out ways to be of more value on the things you control and influence.
Yeah, definitely. So we want to make sure that we're clear. I want to make sure that I'm clear on this point that Patrick's talking about, is that it's a basic need that we take risks, that we have uncertainty in our life. But where are you taking that risk? Are you taking that risk in an area where you have no control, no knowledge, no expertise, certainly no purpose or passion? Or are you taking risk in an area where you have control, you have knowledge and experience, and you have purpose and passion? That's in the career that you're in. That's in the business that you own and operate. So if you're finding yourself looking outside of yourself or outside of your business or career for the solution, allow that to be the big blinking red light. Raise your awareness, do things deliberately, buy the book, What We're Worth, read it, allow that to remind you, use the workbook that will come with it And it's not something you do one time. It's something that you continue to work on and change your perspective on it. Perspective determines action. Gain the perspective, adopt the perspective, have the perspective that by you continuing to learn and grow, that's going to fulfill you the most, and it's going to create the most for those around you. So why would we do it any other way? Again, test that, find out for yourself, and then be clear about continuing to learn and grow in areas. And now there may be an area that you don't have expertise in. There may be an area that you want to gain some expertise in, that you have some purpose and passion in. That might be real estate. I have a lot of clients that want to gain knowledge and expertise in real estate. Great. There's not bad investments. There's only bad investors. So go gain some knowledge, read some books, get a mentor, and gain some experience and some knowledge and expertise. Buy some courses versus just jumping in and gambling. Because we're against gambling, because I gambled. David Shallcross in the book, What We're Worth, gambled, and I almost took my life over it. And so did David. And maybe many of you have had that experience too. And it may not be your life, but it could be other things that you're risking that you may not even aware of.
So another really awesome dynamic about understanding the need for uncertainty, taking risk in something that you can control and influence, or pursuing something that you have some sort of passion or interest or purpose behind it, okay, it doesn't mean that you're going to succeed.
Yeah.
Okay. But I also look at in the context of human life value and the balance sheet, right? The experience is an asset. Okay. Because
this defines success, right?
Failure ultimately becomes an asset. Because if you fail at something, you learn a valuable lesson.
And be clear about that.
Because the universe is designed, I think the world is designed as this like arbiter of value. Right? If you think that there's something that is of value that you have inside of you and you pursue that and it ends up not being valuable, okay, you're going to know it because you're not going to gain anything from it. You're not going to get income or money for it. Okay. But if you look at that as like, okay, that is not necessarily the path. How could I use that experience, right? And maybe refine the approach, or maybe it's something different. But it doesn't mean that you stop pursuing. Pursuing is an infinite task. I would say an infinite opportunity until we pass on.
Yeah.
Right. Is always be pursuing ways to be more valuable. And I think the idea of human life value and having essentially the inventory of your balance sheet, okay, you can determine whether you're of net benefit to the world. Okay. And I think that's where there's always going to be liabilities, always going to be expenses. But are you of net benefit to the world continuously? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's beautiful. Net benefit to the world. Yeah. Love that. And then as you're saying that, Patrick, I used to resist when I heard, like I even got a little bit of frustrated with it years ago, of fail faster. I want you to fail faster. I resisted that. Now I get the lesson of that. It's not saying don't have success and don't create massive value and have all the success, but if you're going to, part of success is failing, but learning from that failure, and the success can be even greater as a result of the lessons that you learn, the quality of life that you have, the perspective that you gain. And I'm living proof of that. I'm one more example for you in your life of, and it hasn't been all unicorns and rainbows and all this stuff since I lost that money and started building back again, right? There's been ups and downs. But my clarity around when things are down, whatever that down may be, whatever that failure may be that I'm looking at, is that I'm clear about extracting the lesson from that, applying that lesson in my life, and then the bonus is to share that lesson with someone else. Because when we share that lesson with someone else, we actually deepen it within ourselves even more. So it's out of self-interest to share that lesson.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I also think that sharing that lesson provides you kind of like a mastermind in a sense, or another interpretation of why it was valuable or why it wasn't valuable.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah,
because,
to add to it.
Exactly. Because if you come to the conclusion, right, you're trying to be of value to your employer, and your employer's like, no, I'm not going to give you, like, why would I give you more money for that? It's not valuable. Right. There has to be, right, obviously the reciprocation of value. But if it's someone outside of you, like let's say it's a friend or another colleague or someone that's, even outside of that specific industry, they can provide you value. So I think relationships ultimately become an asset in that context, where now if you have relationships that you can go to try to understand why something worked or didn't work, right? That asset will give you maybe a different perspective, more information that you can either continue investing or stop investing and going a different direction.
Yep.
But this is what I'm going to bring up, right? Is as you're listening to this, right? Making investment, like you probably have investments right now that you have no control and no influence over, period. We're not saying like sell all of your investments,
Sure.
right? What we're saying is start to take inventory, right, of the assets that you do have and what degree of control and influence you have. Okay. And I would say as you start to look at your specific business strategy, your personal investment strategy, okay, it's finding ways in which you can invest in yourself, right, in your business to expand by at least 10% per year. I think that's a very reasonable benchmark. And so making investment, and I look at some of the best investments are where you have leverage. So where there's leverage, I would say is either management or leadership, where instead of one person doing something, you have many people doing something. So the output is greater. You also have media, right, and technology, okay, which replicates tasks, replicates what a human being does, maybe replicates what you're doing. Okay, so I think that there's leverage opportunities where you can start to make investment in yourself and improve the output that comes from your contribution to the world. So I think that, again, we're not saying sell investments and go all in on yourself, right? We're looking at like, okay, take inventory of your investments, start to identify the investments that you have influence and control over and the ones that you don't have influence and control over, and then start to look for opportunities first within yourself to create more income.
Yeah.
Okay. That first and foremost, like that should be a drive that you have for the rest of your life is to just continue 10% a year, 10% at a minimum.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other assets that you do have, try to, position them in terms of influence and control, right? That is inside of you, not necessarily, the outside world.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Great recap. So I'm thinking about the typical way that people invest today, and they're maybe not as deliberate. They're not deliberate in increasing their own personal human life value, and they're not aware of it. They're not deliberate about it, and so they're in this career. They have this business. They're creating maybe a little bit of uncertainty there that's being fulfilled for them, but then they're relinquishing control of their cash into Wall Street. And they have no control whether or not that's going to go up or down. It's a massive amount of uncertainty for them. So they're getting some fulfillment from that. But the risk that they're taking, they're not aware of the risk, the ultimate risk of, at a real deep emotional level, Patrick, they're devaluing themselves because especially a business owner.
Yeah.
If you're a business owner and you're taking cash and you don't have expertise in the stock market and you're investing in the stock market, you're investing in someone else's business. You're devaluing yourself at a core deep level. You're saying that their business is worth more than your own business. And how's that showing up? So yeah, take inventory, continue to assess, look for small tweaks here and there. You'll know if it's a gamble or not for you. You'll know if it's affecting your life in a positive or a negative way. What we want you to do is be aware of this. We want you to be aware of it. We want you to take an inventory, and we want you to utilize this. And like Patrick said, make some little tweaks here and there, and commit to increase your human life value assets by 10% a year. And then you'll go a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and you'll look back. And here's another angle to take. For those of you that have kids, think about your kids. Is this what you'd want to teach them? Is this what you'd want to share with them for them to have in their life? And if it is, then damn it, lead by example. Adopt this and have this in your life, and then share this with them. And as you share it with them, it will instill it even more in your own life.
Love it. Hubris. It's there. Don't succumb to it.
Yeah, be aware of it. Take inventory. Read my book, What We're Worth. Use the workbook. Continue to use it in your life. And commit to increasing, at a minimum, your human life value assets by 10% a year.
Next episode, we're going to talk about self-worth.
Self-worth. Let's do it.
See you then.